Kicking everybody. We are back for another episode of Picking Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you today?
Doing well. Happy Sunday to you, Keith. We had a Holly Holm trot out there at the ripe young age of 41 and show that maybe she doesn't have it anymore. We had a back and forth fight with Jack Della Maddalena, guy stepping in on 1 week's notice. That was a great fight. And some good stuff coming this week. Tom Aspinall, the return. What are you thinking? How you doing on this Sunday?
I'm doing well. Yeah, crazy to see Jack Della Maddalena almost lose last night to a guy on a week's notice. Especially because he's been lighting the world on fire, and he was just supposed to fight Sean Brady on the last pay-per-view. So, pretty nuts that he almost lost and almost dropped it last night. That would have been a crazy end to a big hype train. But I'm really looking forward to this card. We've got another UK card out of the O2 Arena. Tom Aspinall main event. We've got Molly Meatball McCann in the co-main. And as always, like when they do these local cards, it's stacked up with a lot of United Kingdom talent and talent from the local countries, in that area, that region of Europe. So, I'm super pumped. There's a lot of names on here, a lot of fighters that I really like watching and I like betting on as well. So I'm pumped for this one. What do you think? You excited to dive into this one?
Yeah, I'm super excited to see Tom Aspinall coming off. I think, just about a year ago, he had that ACL injury. So excited to see him get back into form in the heavyweight division. I think it's missed him. And, with all the talks of Stipe Miocic and John Jones happening now in November, right? So, or is it November? I'm not exactly sure the time frame, but whenever that fight's happening. Yeah, so now that the fact that that's booked, I think is really interesting with Tom Aspinall coming back into the mix. And, I don't know, is it officially John Jones's retirement fight? Has he announced that? I think that's, potentially swirling as rumors. Be interesting to see, if Tom Aspinall especially comes out and he looks good here. Does John Jones retire, potentially to get away from Tom Aspinall, to give it to Tom Aspinall? Like, there's a lot of rumors and stuff to come out. So I'm really excited about that. But before we continue into that, one thing I did want to say about the Jack Della Maddalena fight, that first round, yes, he was getting those double legs getting taken down on, or he was getting taken down from those blast double legs. But in the second round, he was defending them much better. And the only time he ended up on the ground being controlled was when he defended a takedown and then continued onto the ground, went to the back, and then got reversed and then found himself in a side control because he was hanging onto that guillotine for too long. So it felt like the times where Jack Della Maddalena was in like peril or wasn't in control of the fight was because he put himself there with bad decisions, hanging onto a guillotine or pursuing the ground where he knew that he didn't have the advantage there. Anytime it was on the feet, he was landing heavy. Now, his opponent was landing on him, but half of the reason Jack Della Maddalena is so excited is because he stands there and trades and he has the chin to do so. I mean, look at his nose. It's on one side of his face. So that's a guy who takes left hooks or right hooks all the time.
It's flat. His nose is completely flat.
It's way over, dude. Like,
definitely a good wake-up call because I think against a guy like Sean Brady, that's a weird fight. We don't know how that would have gone. Sean Brady getting knocked out by Bilal Muhammad or TKO'd by Bilal. And then, Jack Della Maddalena maybe making some really bad decisions in the grappling last night. If it would have gone to that realm in a Sean Brady Della Maddalena fight, the results could have been really interesting because you can't make those mistakes against a guy like Sean Brady. But anyways, just want to remind everybody real quick, please like, comment, subscribe. You can check us out on Spotify if you can't watch us here. Follow us on Twitter at Pickin' Keith, at Pickin' Fights Tom. Check out at _ Pickin' Winners on Instagram and Twitter. Sorry. And all right, you ready to dive into this card with our prelim notables?
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right, let's get it.
All right, prelim notables. Why don't you hit us first?
Definitely very notable. We've got Fili taking on Daniel Barres. Fili, the guy that fought Muhammad Mokaev last time around, and actually gave him quite a bit of trouble in that fight. Muhammad Mokaev, a lot of hype around him. Fili, not so much. One of the lesser known guys in the flyweight division at the moment, but that fight kind of put him on the map a little bit because what did he do? He broke Muhammad Mokaev's knee or tore his
Yeah,
muscle.
I don't think he actually broke it. He had him in a pretty deep knee bar where, his knee had started to curve back, hyperextend back the other way. I think he's still out because of it. I don't know how much longer he's going to be out. It ended up not being as gruesome as it initially looked. I think he said he was only going to be out like 2 or 3 additional months. So it really wasn't that bad. But it looked terrible. And, he had Muhammad Mokaev in some pretty precarious positions on a number of occasions in that fight.
Yeah, that was a dangerous fight for Mokaev. And I don't know, maybe he's not ready because you would think you would see him on this card, right? Mokaev has pretty much fought exclusively on the UK card so far. So, maybe he's still out. Like you would expect to see him on here. But, Filo, great grappler. Daniel Barres, not, this is his UFC debut. Filo has more experience than him. Yeah, I'm going to roll with Filo here. Just the grappling that he showed against a guy like Mokaev was really impressive. Mokaev known for his grappling, and to give him a hard time the way that Filo did, that's enough for me to stake a little bit on the guy. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, this one's tough because of the unknowns. Daniel Barres has a little bit. I think he lost in the Contender Series via split decision. Then he went and he can crushed, a 10-9, 7-9 guy, 6-9 guy. Back to the UFC here, 14-12, getting knockouts, getting submissions. It's really hard to tell. He does have big power. He does have the ability to land. He does have the ability to put people away, but it's really hard to deduce what exactly is him and what is exactly his opponent's disadvantages from not being as good. So it's really hard to see what we'll get from Daniel Barres. Filiho, the pastor, obviously we saw what he could do against top UFC competition in Muhammad Mokaev. Almost winning that fight on a number of occasions, 2 months out. And that was his UFC debut. So I think we're going to go with Filiho here, especially at being near even line. At this point, I don't think there's any reason to try and stake a lot of money on Daniel Barres. Now, it is even because of kind of some of the knockouts in the history of Daniel Barres. But again, you got to remember the competition. And I think the levels of competition are vastly different. And how competitive those matchups were is really what's going to give us this indicator here. And I always just kind of want to side with the guys who have the better ground game. Not to say that Barres has a bad ground game. He has a solid one. But it's just nowhere near as tidy as Rafael Filhos is. Going up against Muhammad Mokaev is a guy who's strong in the ground game. So for those reasons, I'm going to go with Filho. And while I'm at it, I can go ahead and talk about the next one on the card that I want to get to, and that's Bryan Barberena taking on Mahmoud Muradov. Mahmoud Muradov, a lot of people don't know this, or maybe they do. He is a guy who's been trained by Floyd Mayweather. So he's like Floyd Mayweather's MMA counterpart. And he was for a long time knocking out everybody he fought relatively quickly. I mean, you see him go through this thing here from Octagon 13, Wendell Oliveira, UFC debut, Alyssa DeChirico, Trevor Smith, knocking them out, or going to decision with Alyssa DeChirico, but looking good in that one. Had a bunch of canceled fights, including one with Carl Robertson, Christoph Jocko, and Kevin Holland. And then goes out there, first fight back in a little bit of time, 2021, knocks out Andrew Sanchez at the end of the fight. So comes in here, fights Gerald Mearshart. Kyle Baralho had a good back and forth battle with Kyle Baralho, gave him all he could handle there. Baralho ended up obviously winning that, and we know the level of competition and competitor that Baralho is, so that doesn't look as much of a bad win. I like Mahmoud Muradov. He's taking a little bit of time off here, but he's got good boxing. He showed he's got the ability to do to contend on the ground if it has to go there. I mean, when we talk about Bryan Barberena, I mean, he's a guy who's not a big 170. So for this fight to be taking place at 185 pounds against a guy in Mahmoud Muradov who is a full 85, I'm not exactly sure why Barberena, who has that more of a brawling style, is going to want to go back and forth, is want to take his style and thinks he's a good matchup up a weight class against a guy who's trained is the MMA arm of the Floyd Mayweather camp. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to go with Mahmoud Muradov. He's a younger fighter at that. He's taking a little bit less damage. He's a much bigger guy. I'm just feeling like everything is in his favor here. That the only thing that makes me think that Bryan Barberena may win is because everything's telling me that Mahmoud Muradov is gonna. So that's my thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I always love that logic. I go through that myself quite a bit on this show. I like Mahmoud Muradov in this fight. You hit the nail on the head. Bryan Barberena likes to stand and trade. Mahmoud Muradov, he's not going to let Bryan Barberena fight his fight, essentially. A little bit too old at this point, Bryan Barberena. He's still in there, still doing it. Major grappling disadvantage this week. So, yeah, I like the Mahmoud Muradov pick quite a bit.
And just one more layer is Makhmudmuradov. You look at these two losses that he took back to back. Kyle Barallo, a guy who's known for his jiu-jitsu and his aggressive grappling, and Gerald Mearshart, GM3, a guy known for his submission ability. So, I think when you don't have that aspect of the game to be worried about, if you're Makhmudmuradov, this is your fight to win. You're up against a brawler. The guy doesn't have defense, and you're trained by the best defensive boxer of all time. Like, what am I missing here? Why he's not a bigger favorite?
Because Brian Barberena is him. Nah, not really. He's just tough.
Brian Barberena is a legend. He beats up on legends who are past their prime.
Well,
for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, right? He beat Robbie Lawler pretty recently, and then he lost his last fight, I think, to
Gunnar Nelson. He lost to Gunnar Nelson. He lost to RDA. Beat Robbie Lawler. Beat Matt Brown.
Yeah, those are some legends, Matt Brown and
Darian Weeks, not exactly a legend, not exactly intense competition either.
Yeah,
but lost to Jason Witt.
He can't be beating. That fight against Matt Brown was awesome.
He's a fun fight. Goes in there, competes, but I mean, in terms of like his overall ability to win fights, and then going up to 85.
Yeah, no, it's not his fight to win this week. All right.
Do you have any more prelim locks?
Yeah. One I really want to talk about Mick Parkin versus Jamal Pogues. Mick Parkin, really good wins on the Contender Series. Knocked out, some guys like pre-Contender Series as well that are, good competition. Not really any notable promotions. But yeah, Contender Series, rear naked choke win. Great victory for him. Showed high intelligence. He's got heavy hands. He's got great jiu-jitsu as well. It's very aggressive. He's like one of these new heavyweights. He's not like I hate to do it to him, but he's not like a Jared Vandera type of guy. He's active, he's athletic, and Jamal Pogues is I don't know, he's sloppy. He's a guy that relies behind a jab. He's just like a typical heavyweight. And Mick Parkin is one of these new guys coming up, like a true athlete. So I think it's Mick Parkin's fight to win this week. The people at Tapology really agree. I think he could finish the fight either way he wants to. So, I'm going to go with Mick Parkin straight up, though, just because that plus 120 is pretty nice as it is. But if you want to boost it up, you can go Mick Parkin by finish. What do you think, Tom? You like Parkin?
Here's the thing. Mick Parkin, he's 6-0, 27 years old. He's, I guess both of these guys are 27 years old. He is the more athletic guy, especially when you saw Jamal Pogues. Jamal Pogues, this picture is not an accurate representation of the guy we saw step into the cage against Paulo Renato Jr. or Josh Parisian. Now, he got lucky against Josh Parisian, that Josh Parisian's a fat fuck himself. But with that being said, I think the way Jamal Pogues wins is he uses grappling, which is a real big advantage in the heavyweight division, especially if you can take somebody down and hold them there. And that's what he does, but he's not the most dominating athlete whatsoever. He has good boxing, but rarely does he have really any power behind his punches. It's a lot of like pitter patter. He'll take you to the ground. He'll use energy to stay on top of you, but also that takes a lot of energy from him. And it ends up just being almost like a cuddle fest. So he's not the most exciting fighter. In fact, sometimes, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a joke around his name, Stormtrooper, but like Stormtrooper would imply that you just storm in and you take what you want. Not so much in the Star Wars sense, but I mean, not at all in Jamal Pogues' sense. Mick Parkin, like you said, he's more of the athletic guy. I think, and Ryan here in the comments, I think this is related to Mick Parkin coming back at plus 175. So I would go there. But again, you just got to be concerned because Jamal Pogues does have the ability, because he has a grappling background and because it is the heavyweight division. If he can get somebody down, he does have that ability to sit, get on top of them and lay on there and work that way to a decision just from having the position. So that's the concern with laying on Mick Parkin. But if it's plus 175 and he's the more athletic guy, and again, Jamal Pogues doesn't look like that. So I think Tapology needs to update the picture here. But I'm going to go with Mick Parkin here with you.
Yeah, I feel like it's like Wikipedia where people can go in and edit the information. Not edit the information on Tapology per se, but they definitely have fighters picking their own photos. Mm-hmm. Some of them are very flattering. That's all I got. You got any more prelim notables?
Yeah, the one other one I want to talk about is going to be Davy Grant taking on Daniel Marcos. And the reason I think this is particularly interesting is Daniel Marcos and what makes up his 14-0 record. So, he is 14-0. He's coming into the UFC. This is his second fight in the UFC, third if you count the Contender Series. He had a back and forth battle with Brandon Lewis in which he didn't look that great. And then he knocked out Salman Oliveira with a knee to the body 5 months ago. But before that, outside of the UFC, he's had some questionable competition. They are at the 135-pound division, so you're not fighting the tallest of competition. But he himself is 5'7", and the guys he fought here he makes them look like they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 5'2", 5'3". So severe height and reach advantage there for Daniel Marcos, and it just begs the question about that 14-0 record. How much of it is exactly padded, and what he's going to end up looking like against a guy in Davy Grant, who, yeah, he is 37 years old, but Davy Grant always comes to play. He's got these two losses here to Marlon Chito Vera and Adrian Yanez, which is a split decision, in which case a lot of people argue that Adrian Yanez lost that decision and it was Davy Grant's fight. Either way, back and back, Adrian Yanez a solid UFC competition. Marlon Vera, obviously top of the division, going back and forth with him for 3 rounds. Marlon obviously was getting the better of Davy Grant, but I think there was periods in that fight where Davy Grant was having some success. Either way, I think that, the competition against Louis Smolka and obviously Rafael Assunção submitting him with an inverted triangle choke, even though he wasn't winning the majority of that fight, I think it speaks to the craftiness of Davy Grant, the experience inside of the UFC, being 37 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach. You guys are going to be roughly the same size when they go in there. I just think the experience of Davy Grant, and then maybe Daniel Marcos being a little bit out of his element and having a real competition in front of him that maybe he's not used to on the big stage of the UFC. This is, the prelim main event. So that is potentially the most amount of people that have been in the Octagon Forum watching Daniel Marcos fight. Potentially not. I haven't gone back and watched every single one of his fights and weighed the crowds, but I think for a lot of reasons, this would lend itself to Davy Grant at plus 100 or basically near even right here. I think you got to go with the established guy in Davy Grant. And Tapology's with it too, so I'm with it.
Yeah, I'm tailing you on that 100%. Davy Grant is so solid. He's so tough. Entertaining. I like the guy, just adding to all the reasons that you just listed. Also, one thing I want to point out too, it's just interesting. Marcos is from Peru. You don't really see too many Peruvian fighters on the roster.
I don't know why that is, but I mean, if there's not a lot of gyms, there's not a lot of gyms, and it's
right.
hard to, but interesting.
It's just something of, I don't know.
Point.
Yeah. I just caught that real quick, but, I don't know. I mean, MMA still hasn't really caught on everywhere just yet. But yeah, I'm rolling with Davy Grant this week. I like the pick. I really like it. I'm telling you there.
All right.
Yeah, you want to move on to the main card?
Let's do it.
All right. All right. You want to kick us off?
Yep. Lerone Murphy taking on Josh Culibao. This is going to be a really interesting fight, mainly because both guys are traditionally strikers. They're stand-up fighters. Lerone Murphy's a little bit quicker. He's 12-0-1. We haven't seen him. He took a lot of time off. He had a struggle getting fights right around COVID. So that's why you see the gap in his resume 3 years ago, 2 years ago, basically 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2.5, close to 2. Now my math is getting weird. Either way, you get the point. Not a ton of activity over the last 5 years for Lerone Murphy for a multitude of different reasons. But Murphy is a guy who doesn't have good takedown defense, and he wants to keep this fight standing as much as possible. That's not to say that he's one-dimensional. He does use kicks. He is a strong boxer, a little bit maybe of a Muay Thai fighter. His strengths are his speed and his ability to move around the ring and use his head movement. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he can knock you out. It's not he's not one of those guys that you're going to see and he's a big knockout threat, but definitely the accumulation of damage, and he does have pretty precise strikes that if he catches you on the chin, you can definitely go out. Looking at Josh Culibao is far less precise of a striker. He's more of a volume striker, a little bit lending himself to maybe the brawler area. He'll fight in, he'll punch in on you, or not punch in you. He will storm in on you, landing a lot of punches. He'll throw some dirty boxing at you, but he also has an aspect of his game that Murphy doesn't have. And that's not to say that Culibao is a great grappler, a great ground guy, or even that he would prefer to have the fight there. But in this matchup, he might, because we've seen Murphy have bad takedown defense. And, ultimately that's a major hole in his game. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Josh Culibao here. I'm going against the grain. Even though Murphy's the faster fighter, I think Culibao is going to have the ability to, on the feet, throw more volume and potentially switch that up in order to change levels and get Murphy to the ground. And I think the combination of the accumulation of damage and the strike numbers, along with the optics of that to the judges and the ability to get those takedowns in the case of a really close round, or even if he's losing slightly on the feet, that takedown could maybe put him over the edge in the eyes of the judges. So for that reason, I'm going with Josh Culibao here.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. Something I just want to point out, I was just looking back through Josh Culibao's previous odds and fights. He looks to be pretty successful as an underdog historically. I don't have like a percentage off the top of my head. But I was just looking back through a couple, and it's like, all right, I'll roll with the underdog money here with Josh Culibao. I like it. I like your logic on this pick. And yeah, I mean, Josh Culibao, statistically, it seems to be that he's good as a dog. So I'm going to roll with Josh Culibao here.
And just, another layer to make you feel a little bit more comfortable with that. It's not like, Lerone Murphy has been fighting pretty decent competition, but Douglas Silva de Andrade is a UFC caliber, not fantastic. Makwan Amirkhani, definitely that aged well, but Makwan is not the guy that we maybe thought he once was. So it's not as big as maybe we would have hoped it was or thought it was at the time. And Gabriel Santos, that was a split decision, and Gabriel Santos is solid, but he's on a 2-fight skid now too. In concluding this, you look at Melsik Bagdasarian, Sung Woo Choi, split decision, Shailin Nerdabienke. Like these are pretty solid names as well for Josh Culibao. So it's not like he's fighting cans in any aspect, or any regard. So I like Culibao. Kind of reiterating and hammering that point home.
Yeah, you could argue the Sung Woo Choi fight, the split decision, but yeah, definitely a good victory for Josh Culibao. All right, next up we got Jai Herbert versus it's Fares Ziam, right?
Fares Ziam, yeah.
Fares Ziam. Okay, I'm so bad with names. If you've been watching for a while, I could listen to the commentary team say it a million times and I'll never get it right. But yeah, this is a tough one. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think Ziam, he's a little bit more durable. I think he's the better wrestler going into this one. I think takedowns are going to weigh pretty heavily because I think on the feet they're pretty evenly matched. Jai Herbert's really skillful on his feet, but I think the smart move for Fares is to take him down, and I think that's going to win him the fight. I think if he can take down Jai Herbert, hold him down, which I think he totally has the ability to do, then he'll win. If he tries to stand and trade, then that's not going to work out for him against a guy like Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert, really slick combinations. He hides a lot of stuff, throws really great feints, and follows him up with a lot of like surprise body kicks and leg kicks. And who's Ziam's brother again?
No, you're thinking of Ahmed Zahabi.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways,
Ahmed Zahabi is Faraz Zahabi's brother. This is Faraz Ziam.
Right. Okay. It was the Faraz that screwed me up. Now we got too many Farazes on the roster. But yeah, anyways, Ziam, if he goes in there intelligently, which he typically does, I think he'll win this fight. So, very durable guy, great wrestling, good stand up. Going with Ziam. What do you think, Tom?
I'm actually going with Jai Herbert, the backcountry banger.
I like him.
Yeah, can you turn your volume down slightly?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if I'm hearing the echo. It's just me or not, but
better.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jai Herbert. I feel like Jai Herbert has shown that he can be long. He can use his range. He's 35 years old, so he's going to be the older fighter here. But I like his activity. I like his competition and the level that he's fought at. And the people that he's fought to boot. I think he's shown that he has some decent takedown defense against top-level UFC submission guys. That's definitely where he's, faltered a little bit. Lost to Ilia Topuria. Obviously, you're going to forgive at this point. And lost to Renato Moicano by submission. Renato wants money or Moicano wants money. I'm going to forgive those two losses there. Those are top-quality guys. But I think Jai Herbert is a guy who goes out there and constantly impresses us against any competition he's against. And I think he's going to go out there and he's going to look good here against Fares Ziam. Whenever people kind of count Jai Herbert out, he always seems to come out and perform, other than against Ilia Topuria and Kama Worthy. But I'll still go ahead and exactly go with Jai Herbert. He rocked Ilia Topuria bad. He's shown that even in all these fights, even these losses, he's had glimpses of something there, and he's a fun fighter. And I'm going with him. I think he always finds a way to make something happen against your looking at your top 5, top 10 level talent, which I don't think for Ziam is yet, especially not at, what is he, 25, 26 years old. So for all those reasons, you can have a slight reach advantage on the side of Jai Herbert too, UFC experience. I'm going with Jai.
Yeah, I like Jai Herbert. He is a fun, exciting fighter. Likable guy, black country banger. I mean, you can't disagree with what Bananas and Grapes said in the chat. He rocked Ilia Topuria bad. He definitely did. Ilia Topuria, great, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm torn on this one now after hearing you talk and seeing what Bananas and Grapes had to say.
Bananas and Grapes don't lie, man.
Still gonna roll with Ziam because we have to like divert a little bit on this show, right? I don't think we will on this next fight. We've got Andre Muniz versus Paul Craig. Paul Craig is 35. Yeah, he's 35 years old. He's dropping down from light heavyweight to middleweight. As much as I like Paul Craig, I think he's one of the better personalities in MMA, right? Excuse me. It's the Celsius. He's one of the better personalities in the UFC right now, I think. With like the war paint that he wears to face-offs and everything. He's fun. In the octagon, a lot of people don't really like him, but I'm a huge fan of jiu-jitsu. If you love jiu-jitsu and you love somebody with like a really strong guard, then you'll like Paul Craig because Paul Craig is great off of his back. He kind of pissed. Yeah, pretty much. He pissed a lot of people off in his last fight against Johnny Walker when, he just basically hung on to a single leg takedown the whole time and Johnny Walker just pummeled his face in. He could be a little bit of a butt scooter from time to time. I'm basically making arguments for why people wouldn't like Paul Craig, but I think the weight cut is the most important thing. I think, and then also you factor in the fact that Andre Muniz is also a great jiu-jitsu player, and
strong.
Yeah, he's very strong. I think being how good these two guys are on the ground, Andre Muniz is going to try and keep it standing. I think Paul Craig, being that he only can go to the ground, that's pretty much what he's going to try and do. If Muniz can keep it standing, I think he could touch up Paul Craig and put his lights out potentially. And I think if it goes to the ground, it's a little bit more of a 50-50. I'm going to go with Muniz here. Yeah, I'm going to go with Muniz, and I think he'll finish Paul Craig, unfortunately. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, and for the main reason being, I think Paul Craig has the ability, for as good of a submission artist as he has the ability to get submitted. Andre Muniz, I guess considering the Brendan Allen matchup, you could say the same thing about him. Brendan Allen is far and away better than Paul Craig is right now, and he just has a different skill set. He's much better on the feet. Andre Muniz has a quiet striking game. It's not the best, and certainly not going to be his bread and butter when it comes to going up against guys who have legitimate striking as their main aspect of their game. But he does have some pretty heavy hands, and he has shown in fights, a little bit with Brendan Allen that went back and forth, a little bit with Uriah Hall where he just kind of laid on Uriah Hall, and obviously Uriah Hall's going to have the striking advantage on the feet there. But over the course of his fights, he's went from just having a complete almost Paul Craig style of just, I have to get this to the ground and, use a submission there and use my strength and use my jiu-jitsu, to having a little bit more of the, like, almost like a Khabib level striking, to where like the threat of my ground game is going to open things up on the feet, but I still have the level of talent to be able to capitalize on those openings and recognize them. So that's slowly been coming along for Andre Muniz. At 33 years old, he's kind of reaching the end of his prime. But with Paul Craig's 35 years old. He's getting further outside of his prime, considering he's, that old and he's dropping down from 205 to 185. He wasn't like he was the smallest 205er either. So I'm interested to see what this weight cut is going to do to him. And then, he's going to have the obvious disadvantage on the feet. I don't know if the weight cut's going to make him better and more powerful. I doubt it will. Going down a weight, I mean, he might have a little bit more power, but he's never been knocking people out anyway. So, Paul Craig, like you said, he's going to try and get it to the ground. Andre Muniz has the ability to submit and be submitted against the top level. I just don't know if that's going to be Paul Craig here. And unfortunately, I think Paul Craig is gonna get the loss here. I think we could see either a knockout, and he's the guy that, he gets punched and he gets knocked out, so he just jumps on a leg and tries to, go for like a leg lock or an ankle pick or a knee bar or something like that. And Muniz is going to be wise enough to keep himself safe, but powerful enough to punch Paul Craig in the jaw. So I think this could be another time where we see Paul Craig just getting TKO'd from getting hit on the ground while he's diving at a foot.
Yeah. I think, the weight cut at this age too, his chin's going to be in a real, and the damage that he took against Johnny Walker, his chin's going to be in shambles going into this fight, just between those three factors alone. And it's not like he had the best chin to begin with. So as much as I like Paul Craig, I don't think he's going to win.
He's so cool, dude, though.
Yeah, he's fucking awesome. He's just a cool guy, but he's not going to win this week. And, I almost wish they would cherry pick fights for him and make it easy on him on these UK cards. He's not a guy that's ever going to hold the belt. But if you put him in the right situation, he could be extremely entertaining,
Yeah, 100%.
I think they should just be making those fights for him. All right, next up, Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Touchy Fili. I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood. Andre Fili, he hasn't been like super active recently. There was a little bit of a stretch, if I remember correctly, where Andre Fili was like fighting every couple of months or so. And over the past couple of years, he's slowed down. He's been losing a lot more in the UFC too. I think Nathaniel Wood is like, he's very legitimate competition in this division. He does have a couple of losses on his record, but I just think overall better fighter. I don't think Fili really has the grappling to out-grapple Nathaniel Wood, and I think Nathaniel Wood could touch him up on his feet. Again, I like Andre Fili. He's another guy that I think is pretty cool. He's a drummer in some band. He's got a cool life outside of fighting, and I don't think he's going to get it done this week against Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood has a higher ceiling. He's got more of a future as a bantamweight in the UFC. And Andre Fili is just stepping in there to get beat in front of the home crowd, I think. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, the interesting thing about professional sports, but specifically it seems to be like MMA and the UFC, is that if you do have like a life outside of it, generally speaking, that's a hindrance to your ability to perform inside the cage. The only one who's really been able to pull it off is like Volk, and he's got that, he does like Cooking with Volk, and obviously he does a lot of publicity, but that's all tied into the UFC thing.
Not to mention the fact that cooking is normal. Like cooking is
something. I know, but like he's got a cookie show. You still got to produce it and plan what you're going to do.
Right. I know.
But that's all predicated on the fighting, and I'm sure it always comes second. Like when you have something like a band or whatever, like that's obviously going to take up a big part of your time. And I've actually seen people rave about Andre Fili's songs. And I don't know if they were doing that kind of like tongue in cheek, being sarcastic, because maybe it's really bad. I haven't personally listened to it, but this guy was going on and on. So maybe it is very good. But that being said, like I think, as odd as it is in the UFC, like you look at Conor McGregor and like, getting the money and having the job deals. We always talk about it. If somebody's like in a lot of commercials or in a lot of movies or something, generally speaking, they're not that good. You look at Usman. There's a numerous amount of examples to, you look at Ronda Rousey, and she fell off when she started going, very celebrity. The same thing happens with, Conor McGregor and not so much John Jones, but John Jones just takes a lot of time off because he's in jail. So, it's a little bit different. He has a way to recenter himself, which, better or worse. At the end of the day, I think having that outside thing, as healthy as it is for you mentally, fighting's an unhealthy game. And if you have that, it's going to hurt you. Andre Fili is a guy who has, precise strikes. He's got good power, but he's got to land at a good spot on you. He's not the guy who's going to like hit you at a random part in your head, but because he has so much power, you're going to go out anywhere. His power comes from his precision. Nathaniel Wood is a guy who's got pretty decent head movement. He does get hit, but he does have a really good chin. He's a little bit wild. He's a little bit unorthodox. He has a lot of volume to his strikes, and he's a guy who does have significant power too, but he also has really good intelligence. And the other thing you laid, a bit of a comment to is the fact that he does have a grappling advantage in this matchup as well. So I think Andre Fili, with a little bit of the time off and maybe having a second love and having a band, you're not going to be as dedicated as somebody who has one love, one focus, and one mentality coming into the fight. So for those reasons, I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood. I think he has more power, or maybe not as much power, but I think he's going to definitely have more volume, and that's going to land more on the judges. I think he's going to have the better chin. And Andre Fili has shown that he's going to have some chin issues. I know he went through some, life issues as well. I think one fight, I forget exactly what it was, but I remember it was him who was like, after the fight dropped, that like his mom died like 2 days prior or something incredibly sad and touching, and that he was able to fight through that. So, you hate to because I'm picking against him, it feels like I'm rooting against him because I'm going to obviously root for the guy I pick. But, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And I think in this one, it's going to be Nathaniel Wood is going to win.
Yeah, that is the hardest part about this sport, right? It's just one guy versus the other. Somebody's dreams are getting crushed. Somebody's career could end. I hope Andre Fili's career doesn't end. But yeah, we're never specifically rooting against these people. It's just, sometimes we are. But yeah,
Some
Ken Field.
people, yeah. Roxanne Modafferi.
Yeah, well, we don't have to worry about her anymore, thank God.
I had
But
a nightmare that she was making a comeback.
I thought you were going to say something else for a second.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know what
No, that would be even worse, arguably worse.
Yeah, when you started saying you were having a nightmare about Roxanne Modafferi, I was like, "Where's this going?" Um, I just popped in a fresh Zin so that we could talk about Molly McCann versus Julija Stoliarenko. All I have to say is that Molly McCann is going to win. She's going to do something flashy and exciting. Minus 350 favorite. Molly McCann is like their poster child for the UK. I think the UFC might have even like pushed Patty to the back burner for a little bit after that Jared Gordon fight, which
he had to
totally
get surgery, right?
I don't even know. I haven't paid attention to the fucking guy. He pissed me off.
He got lap band surgery.
I will not tolerate this Happy Warrior slander. Bananas and grapes. I think it's your first time joining us here, commenting. Make sure you subscribe and come back because I find that very funny. We slander Roxanne Modafferi on this show at least maybe once every 6 months now that she's retired. It used to be a lot more regular. But yeah, Molly McCann's going to do something crazy this week. There's a fight made for her. She's exciting in front of the UK crowd. The break that she took away from the UK cards was at MSG against Erin Blanchfield. And I believe that was her last fight last November. And she almost suffered a spiral fracture at the hands of Erin Blanchfield. As Joe Rogan kept saying on the commentary, that if she doesn't tap, she's going to get a spiral fracture over and over and over again.
Thanks, Joe.
But this fight's made for her. They want her back, on the highlight reels. So Julija Stoliarenko not really up to the level of competition. You can't really get TKO'd by Chelsea Chandler, the one that you were just hovering over. Chelsea Chandler running away last night.
Damn it! I was hoping you weren't going to mention it because I wanted to mention it.
That was pretty funny.
That was ridiculous.
Why are you running? I kept seeing the videos with that sound over it. I was cracking up. But she's Julija Stoliarenko has losses to good competition. Yana Santos, formerly known as Yana Kunitskaya, which was a lot more fun to say. Alexis Davis, and then Chelsea Chandler. And she has a win over Jessica Rose Clark. Sorry, Tom.
So does everybody.
Yeah, but anyways, she doesn't have it for Molly McCann this week. Molly McCann's going to piece her up. So going with Molly McCann. She's gonna do something exciting. I hope at least. So Molly McCann by knockout, sweeten that minus 350 a little bit. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, the thing about Stoliarenko's the fighter who, I mean, she fought at 135 and like missed weight a couple of times with that. Like she was like shaking out of the scale at 35, still missed weight. So now she's going to drop down to 25. I gave a little bit of a perusing to her Instagram. She is looking like thinner, I guess. Like she's looking fitter. So maybe she's going to make 125 no problem. That's the big question in this fight is Stoliarenko going to make 25? Is a co-main event for somebody who had trouble making 35. It's nuts that on UFC London, they would trust her in this spot. So I don't know what's going on, what additional incentives there are. But the thing is like, she wasn't that good at 35. So she's going to drop down, be drained out. Her entire camp must have just been like, when did she last fight? 9 months ago. So first of all, Chandler was running away. So if that is the person who's beating you at 35, you drop down to 25 where there's arguably better competition. What's the mentality here other than to say, hey, Molly, like, here's a sacrificial lamb. Thanks for, boosting Erin Blanchfield. So, this is
to your point, the UFC may want Stoliarenko at 125. They may have offered her something to, really make her drop that extra weight, knowing that it's going to make her more likely to, go to sleep if she gets touched on the chin.
She's 1-4 in the UFC. Like the fact that she's been able to stick around this long is nuts. And her only win is against Jessica Rose Clark, who's only in the UFC because she's hot and she's not even in the UFC anymore. It's Molly McCann's fight. We don't really have to talk much more about this one. It's going to be an easy knockout. It would be crazy if Molly McCann submitted her too, but I think Molly McCann by knockout is a very safe bet on this card. And then Molly McCann's going to act like she just knocked out You name it.
Valentina Shevchenko, or she's gonna
Yeah.
yeah, somebody's gonna give her a belt and she's gonna go run around
She's gonna start crying.
Yeah, you know
She's
what?
gonna
Good for
stand
her.
on the top of the octagon like this, like.
I like that she like has her moment and everything in front of the home crowd. I think that is like the sickest thing ever, and I think it's probably such a good feeling for her.
It's gonna be like when Jake Paul knocked out Ben Askren. It's like,
yeah, right. Like, I don't think I think that holding a championship belt is completely inappropriate. I don't think anybody in the UFC should be holding that unless they're a champion.
well, yeah, she held the championship belt. And they go, okay, you want to be a champion? Here's Aaron Blanchfield. Have your arm torn apart.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Here's someone who actually could be a champion.
Check yourself.
Yeah. Speaking of people who could potentially be champions someday, you did touch on this a little bit before. Tom Aspinall, that long layoff after the Curtis Blades fight basically blew up his whole knee. But he's back now. Another UK. I mean, what a bummer that fight was too. And that was really exciting because that had a lot of implications involved with it. And for him to blow up his knee within, like, I don't know, what was that, the first minute or two of the fight? Crazy stuff. Marcin Tybura is a good, what do they call it? Like, not a warm-up fight, a tune-up. He's a good tune-up fight for Tom Aspinall. I think Marcin Tybura, he's good all around. He doesn't have the gas tank. Tom Aspinall, you'd have to imagine, he hasn't really fought a full 5 rounds yet, right? But
Tom Aspinall, no.
Yeah, but you'd have to imagine just looking at
him. No, because he finishes everybody.
Yeah, he finishes everyone. Yeah, but if this does go a little bit longer, he just looks like an athlete. He's he's tall and lean, and you'd have to imagine the gas tank is going to be better than a guy like Marcin Tybura, who carries around a lot of body fat. But I just think overall, great jiu-jitsu, pretty good stand-up. Marcin Tybura is not up to par in this one. There's a reason that Tom Aspinall is minus 450. Take him to win the fight by finish. It's going to be a fun tune-up comeback party for Tom Aspinall in front of the UK fans. And, you mentioned before that Jon Jones didn't announce whether or not that was his retirement fight against Stipe coming up. I don't know if a win over Marcin Tybura really catches the attention of Jon Jones unless he does it in really stunning fashion, which he may. But you never know what to expect from a guy after such a major injury and such a long time off. I think he'll get the win. I just don't know how exciting or how fast it'll be. But, a good win here could catch the eye of whoever the champion is in November, or maybe even a vacant belt. So I'm going with Tom Aspinall here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think of Tom Aspinall like in English, Cyril Gahn, if Cyril Gahn was better at striking and much better at grappling. So with that being said, he's a big presence. Looks like he's very relaxed in there. He has a really good striking acumen. He has good reaction time, good speed, good power. But he has also got a good fight IQ. And I think that's his biggest strength, is being able to assess his opponent's strengths, weaknesses, recognizing opportunities, and not getting outside of himself. Making sure that he's staying within his own fight game, make his opponent fight him and take what the opponent's giving him. If he gives him a neck, then he'll go after the neck, but he's not going to continue to shoot on the neck after they start defending that, and vice versa. So I think Tom Aspinall is definitely a really a high-valued prospect contender in the heavyweight division at this point. Like you said, a shame about the PCL or the ACL or the MCL or the CL of various different types. But yeah, I think Tybura at plus 350, I don't even know if that's enough, because, I'm heavy on Tom Aspinall, even at minus 450. Tom Aspinall to finish this inside of 2 rounds, like you can get those like plus minus 2.5 rounds or something. I would say I don't think this one hits the 3rd. I think there's probably a couple instances where Tom Aspinall almost finishes this one in the 1st. Granted, his MCL, ACL, PCL knee as a whole is been reconstructed and working as I guess we would expect it to, or as it maybe should. Tom Aspinall at his best, Tom Aspinall, the version of him that we have seen prior win, should take care of Marcin Tybura inside of a round, inside of 2 maximum. The question is are we going to see that guy? Is he ready? This is a good tune-up fight to check where he's at in terms of his recovery. Marcin Tybura, he doesn't have great stand-up. He'll go in there, he'll try to box with you, he'll maybe throw the occasional leg kick, but I think at this point, Tybura, if he tries to lay on him, Tom Aspinall has good takedown defense. He has a good, jiu-jitsu. He's got good wrestling. He's going to be able to win anywhere this goes. And yeah, I think Marcin Tybura might be some Polish sausage.
Yeah, shout out real quick Ryan the Ripper and Bananas and Grapes who have been here the whole time in the chat. Thank you guys. Yeah, he's going to turn Marcin Tybura into Polish sausage. That's pretty funny. All right, so. Oh, and then one more comment. Bananas and Grapes. It's the Molly McCann show. I definitely think she's going to be what people talk about the most after this night.
Yeah, I mean, if this isn't set up to be a firework ending to UFC London, I don't know what is. Molly McCann, who's definitely brings the fire and the electricity, especially for UK British fans. So that number one, and then Tom Aspinall going out there and beating up a guy who he should take the win, but has a little bit of a name. I mean, this is like clearly a very targeted, tailored card. But hey, listen, these English shows, these London shows, they pop off, these UK events. So like I expect the vibes inside of where is this taking place?
The O2.
The O2 Arena. Yeah, I should have known. The vibes in the O2 Arena are going to be nuts. I mean, you have a heavyweight fight headlining. It's Tom Aspinall, first fight back. Molly McCann's on the card. It's going to be sick. It's going to be definitely sick.
Yeah, and there should be another card in the UK coming up towards the end of the year between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, right? Like they haven't announced that yet officially.
Right.
But, you would, and then I think they want to sell out. What big soccer stadium is that they want to sell out? Maybe it's the O2 also, but I feel like maybe the Liverpool Arena or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I'm not too well versed in United Kingdom sports arenas.
It's the main one though, right? The main stadium.
Yeah,
where they play, where we play, where the NFL gets played.
Is it Wembley?
Yeah, Wembley.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting that confused. Maybe Wimbledon is tennis.
No, I think it's Wembley. Oh, you imagine they do Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou in Wembley. Woo!
Well, Ariel Helwani brought this up on his show, and I think I totally agree with him. There's really only 2 locations that fight should have been made for. It's been announced. I don't even think it's taking place in Abu Dhabi, but it is somewhere in the Middle East. Ariel Helwani brought up a great point. The only 2 places that fight should have taken place are either in Las Vegas or at Wembley. But instead,
I would say maybe like you could have like the Dallas Stadium to piggyback of what Canelo did. You could do the Raiders Stadium because that thing is huge and gorgeous and in Vegas. So sell out that stadium. I think that might even be one of the biggest venues they have in Vegas. So like, boom, right there with you. And then like Wembley, do it in London.
I don't know if that fight sells out like the Dallas Cowboys Stadium the same way that Canelo did.
Yeah, Canelo does have a lot of fans that travel, but I mean, it's a. Well, and the other thing, the belt's not on the line. That's a big factor. Big thing. The belt's not on the line.
Texas is right next to Mexico, so like that's why so many.
Right.
Or the reason why the Cowboys Stadium was packed out. I think the way that you do, like they should have done it at Wembley. Instead, you're gonna just like then you get real fans in the building, and so they're gonna do it in a.
Say where they're doing it?
I think it's in the Middle East somewhere. I don't know if it's in Abu Dhabi. But that's a fight that deserves to be in front of like real fans, local fans, and instead it's just going to be a lot of like rich moguls and media personality out in Abu Dhabi or wherever it is watching it. Which is a little
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So I don't think they've said exactly the venue yet.
Yeah, the average person isn't going to fly to Saudi Arabia.
Riyadh, Riyadh.
Never heard of it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So that's where it's going to be, and that fight should be taking place in either Vegas or the UK. But it is what it is. I'm sure people will still buy the pay-per-view. Good info. Take care of yourself. Thanks, Ryan the Ripper. With that, let's hit our pick rundown real quick and wrap this baby up. Put a bow on it.
I was going back to the that video where I said put a bow on it. I'm like, should that be a thing I'm going to say? When you said wrap it up, I'm like, oh, do I say it? Do I not say it? And then you just like put a bow on it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, that could be your thing. All right. Starting from the bottom, prelim opener, I'm going with Rafael Filo over Daniel Barres. Gonna keep an eye on Shauna Bannon, just based on Tapology, what I'm seeing right here. Taking Mahmoud Muradov over Brian Barberena, Mick Parkin over Jamal Pogues, Davey Grant over Daniel Marcos, and then on to the main card, Josh Culibao over Lerone Murphy, Fares Ziam over Jai Herbert, which I'm still conflicted on that one. I almost don't want this one to count to my record, but, make your bed. You got to lay in it. Andre Muniz over Paul Craig, Nathaniel Wood over Andre Touchy Fili. I think that his nickname is very important to say when you say his last name too, because Touchy Fili is just so much better than just Fili.
Wasn't there a kicker in the NFL whose last name was Fili?
Yes, there was. I think it might have been spelt differently.
All right, continue. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Another name where you have to say the nickname too, Molly Meatball McCann over Julija Stoliarenko. I think most likely by knockout. And then Tom Aspinall by finish over Marcin Tybura. So, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
AJ Fili is who we were looking at.
Yeah.
From the bottom going to the top, I'm going with this is a tight one with Perez and Filho. I would take this one not to go the distance because I think Perez can knock out Filho. Filho can submit Perez. I'm not exactly sure which way it's going to go. If I had to pick a person, I would say Filho, but my bet for this one is that it doesn't go the distance. I go Mahmoud Muradov to finish Brian Barberena. I'm staying away from the Jamal Pogues Mick Parkin fight. I'm going with Mick Parkin. I'm also going to go with this is an interesting fight because we didn't talk about it, but Ducasey has showed up like a grappler as of late, and he hasn't done his like Muay Thai striking. Alvarez has a strong weakness for grapplers, but he's going to be the longer and the better striker here. I don't know how this is going to go. I want to say Ducasey's going to get the win. I'm gonna bet with Ducasey, even though it's maybe against my better judgment. I'm also going to go with Davey Grant to get the win over Daniel Marcos. I think he might be. I don't know if he'll finish him, but I think Davey Grant money line. I think it's like a pick'em fight, so that you don't need necessarily more than that. I'm going to go with the underdog pick of Culibao getting it done over Lerone Murphy because he has a different in volume and he has a differentiator in the grappling game. Going with Jai, the backcountry banger or the black country banger to get it done over Fares Ziam. I think he just finds a way to get it done. I think he's crafty. Muniz, I think, has more tools and is going to get it done over one-dimensional Paul Craig, who's going down in weight. I think Nathaniel Wood is going to overwhelm Andre Fili, and he also just has a little bit more tools. I'm trying to ignore the Cialis ad to the right of my screen. Molly McCann taking on Julija Stoliarenko. I'm going to go with Molly McCann. It's her stall. I'm just going to keep talking so that nobody hears what you're saying, Keith. And then I'm going with Tom Aspinall over Marcin Tybura. It's a UK card. I think we're going to see Nathaniel Wood, Molly McCann, and Tom Aspinall put on a show for everybody.
Yeah, nobody saw the Cialis ad on your screen.
I know. I didn't need to mention it at all.
Yeah, nobody would have known that you Google Cialis 6 times a day.
6? No, it's down to 3. I've cut back.
Okay, so you're not thinking about it as much anymore.
No, only every few hours.
Okay, solid. Yeah. Hey, we all need a little help sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Some PEDs.
With that, thanks for sharing your Sunday with us. Everybody that was here watching, commenting in the chat, appreciate you being here. Just a quick reminder, like, comment, subscribe. If you can't watch us on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. Tom also does a great job clipping up like all the individual fights. So, if you watch this whole episode and there's a specific fight you want to go back to, you can either get the timestamps in the description, or you can check out the clips on our channel. Follow us on Twitter @_pickinwinners. It's also that on Instagram, and then @pickinfightstom, @pickinkeith. What else am I forgetting, Tom? Oh yeah, leave comments. Thanks for our friends commenting with us today.
All right. Everybody have a good Sunday.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.